From the window of a high-rise apartment in Manhattan, New York City, the snow-covered view of Central Park stretched out before her. Helen Bradley stood by the window, gazing into the distance as she took a sip of her warm tea. Her life was about to reach a major turning point. Daydreaming again? She turned around to see her sister Laura sitting on the living room sofa, browsing through a fashion magazine. Laura had made a name for herself as a sought-after stylist in New York's fashion world. Her refined beauty and sense of style had earned her requests from many celebrities. "It's not a dream, it's a plan," Helen replied quietly. "I've completed the business plan for EcoChic. I'm planning to show it to investors next week." Laura looked up from her magazine and gazed at her sister. Her expression was a mixture of sympathy and contempt. "That eco thing again?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Helen, face reality. What customers want is status, luxury, and glamour. Not sustainability." Although Helen had built a 10-year career in the apparel industry, her recent passion had turned toward sustainable fashion. Having studied environmental science and fashion design in college, she had become obsessed with the possibility of merging these two fields. But few people understood her vision, especially her family. The apartment door opened, and Martha entered carrying shopping bags in both hands. Martha was the co-founder of the luxury department store, Bradley and Company, and still worked as an executive. After divorcing her husband, she had maintained half of the company's controlling interest, continuing to protect the Bradley family name and legacy. "Mom, you didn't need to shop so much," Helen said, walking over to help with the bags. "Darling, these are all necessities," Martha kissed her daughter's cheek. "Besides, Roland's new silk scarves just arrived, so I brought presents for both of you." Martha gracefully placed the shopping bags on the floor and brushed back her hair. Even after her divorce, she maintained a perfect appearance and her position in high society. She handed one scarf to Helen and tossed another to Laura. "Aren't they divine? These first-class items are the essence of our brand." Helen touched the material of the scarf and asked, "Where are they made?" Martha shrugged. "Probably Italy or somewhere. What matters is that it's Roland." "Did you check the production process or labor conditions?" Helen asked quietly. Martha sighed. "Oh, here we go again. Helen, business isn't about that. Customers want quality and prestige. They'll fall asleep at the mere mention of ethical production." "But the industry is changing," Helen argued. "The new generation of consumers is looking for values and transparency behind brands. According to my research." "Your sister's research," Laura interrupted. "You can say that because you don't know what's happening on the ground. My clients aren't asking for eco. All they want is to attract envious glances on the red carpet." Martha gracefully sat down on the sofa and picked up a photo book from the coffee table. "Helen, you have wonderful talent. That's why I've prepared a position for you in the design department at Bradley and Company. When your sense of style combines with our brand power, we could create a magnificent collection." This was a conversation that had been repeated many times. Martha was always trying to draw Helen into the family business. Certainly, the offer was attractive: a stable high salary, prestige, and above all, the security of being recognized. But it meant abandoning her own vision. Helen returned to the window and looked at the trees in Central Park. 10 years ago, when she graduated from college, her father Richard Bradley had dismissed her idea of environmentally friendly fashion and criticized her for lacking practical business sense. One of the reasons for her parents' divorce was that her father had pushed for a more traditional line, while her mother sought a more modern approach. However, modern and sustainable were different concepts for Martha. "I intend to launch my own brand," Helen said with determination. "I've already started negotiations with manufacturers and found suppliers for organic cotton. I'll start small, but there's potential for growth." "You're going to invest all your savings?" Martha's voice was tinged with concern. Yes. If necessary, I'm prepared to move out of this apartment and into a cheaper place. What a thought. Martha placed her hand on her chest in surprise. You're a Bradley. A cheap apartment is out of the question. Laura frowned. Sis, to be honest, I'm worried you'll fail. You're a wonderful designer, but business is hard. Especially in today's market. Helen smiled. Thank you, but I've made up my mind. I'm going to make eco-chic a reality. Martha and Laura exchanged glances. Their eyes reflected concern and a hint of pity. That evening, Helen was in her room doing a final check of her business plan. In her mind, stylish designs using environmentally friendly materials kept coming to her. She looked out the window. The New York night skyline was shining. She renewed her determination. She was ready to give up her previous stability to prove her vision and bring change to the fashion industry. 6 months had passed since Helen launched Eco-Chic. She sat in a small Brooklyn apartment room, staring at her laptop screen. Outside the window, rain continued to fall, and the gray sky seemed to reflect her mood. It wasn't a bad start, she murmured to herself. But reality was harsh. Eco-Chic had been operating at a loss since its first year. The cost of ethically produced materials was higher than expected, and negotiations with factories had been difficult. Furthermore, quality control issues with the first collection had forced her to recall many products. While there were customers who sympathized with Helen's vision, the market as a whole still didn't fully understand the value of sustainable fashion. She opened her closed diary and began to write. Today, the last of the inventory sold out. However, I don't have the funds to produce for the new season. The bank has refused further loans. I've used up all my savings and maxed out my credit cards. To continue with Eco-Chic, I need investors. But will anyone understand my vision? The sound of rain intensified, and Helen walked to the window. 6 months ago, she had left her luxury Manhattan apartment and moved to this modest room in Brooklyn. To save on rent, she had chosen a place that could be used as both a bedroom and an office. Design sketches were taped to the walls, and fabric samples were piled on a small table. Her cell phone rang, and Helen looked at the screen. It was from her mother. She took a deep breath before answering. Helen, how are you? Martha's voice was tinged with concern. I'm fine, Mom, Helen tried to sound cheerful. Don't lie. I've been in the fashion business for over 30 years. I hear rumors about your little company. Helen was silent. Darling, that's enough, isn't it? End this experiment and come back home. Your position at Bradley and Company is still open. Mom, I haven't given up yet. But you're out of money, aren't you? Helen was silent again. I see, Martha sighed. Come for dinner tomorrow. Let's talk. After hanging up, Helen slumped over the table. She knew she was faced with a choice, either accept Martha's proposal or find a new way to raise funds. The following evening, Helen knocked on the door of the Bradley family's Manhattan apartment. Laura opened the door. Sis, it's been a while, she said, looking Helen up and down with a frown. That dress isn't designer, is it? I designed it myself, Helen replied. It's organic cotton. In the living room, Martha sat elegantly on the sofa, a wine glass in hand. A lavish dinner was set on the table. Helen, it's been a while, Martha stood up and embraced her daughter. You've lost weight. The three began to eat quietly. The conversation stayed on topics like the weather and mutual acquaintances, but eventually Martha got to the point. Helen, let's be honest. Eco-Chic is over. You made a wonderful attempt, but the market isn't ready yet. Helen listened silently to her mother's words. We want to help you, Martha continued. Come back to Bradley and Company. Your design sense is wonderful. If you direct it in the right way. The right way? Helen's voice was quiet but filled with strong will. The realistic way, Martha corrected herself. Unfortunately, in today's fashion industry. I failed, Helen interrupted her mother. I admit that. My business plan was naive, and my market research was insufficient. But my vision isn't wrong. Martha and Laura exchanged glances. Sis, Laura spoke up. Face reality. You've lost all your money. You have no choice but to rely on us now. I'm going to try again, Helen replied. But with a different approach this time. What are you saying? Martha's voice turned cold. You don't have any funds. Mom, I'm asking for financial support, Helen said quietly. As family, I want you to back me. A heavy silence fell over the room. Martha placed her wine glass on the table and let out a deep sigh. Business just wasn't for you. Laura gave a sarcastic smile. Don't rely on us now. We're busy, you know. Helen felt frozen. The rejection from her family hurt her more deeply than the business failure. I see, she said, slowly standing up. I understand. She left the living room. The morning after the rain in New York always had a special glow. Helen Bradley was sitting in a cafe in the Chelsea district, listening to the words of the man sitting across from her. Alex Green was a 40-year-old businessman known for sustainable investments. He said he had read Helen's blog Eco Fashion Forward and sympathized with her vision. Your analysis is sharp, Alex said as he drank his coffee. Many people use the word sustainable lightly, but few understand its true meaning. Your blog is different. Helen smiled. A year had passed since the failure of Eco Chic. During that time, she had barely made a living as a freelance designer while continuing to share information about sustainable fashion. Her blog had gradually gained attention and earned a certain level of recognition within the industry. Thank you, she replied. But there's a limit to what I can do with just a blog. What I really want to do is actually create products, Alex continued. That's exactly why I'm here. Helen, I want to invest in your vision. Helen listened to his words in disbelief. The name, Renova Style, was decided a month after that conversation. Alex and Helen developed the concept for a new brand that merged eco-friendly materials with contemporary design. With Alex's investment, they were able to build a more sophisticated business model, learning from the lessons of the previous eco-chic failure. Unlike the previous brand, we'll emphasize style over eco, Helen was explaining in the design studio. Being sustainable is a given premise, but first we'll attract customers with appealing designs. Renova Style's first collection was released in a limited online sale. Bags made from repurposed luxury materials that were destined for disposal, and a simple, sophisticated apparel line using organic cotton, quickly became topics of conversation on social media. Influencers began introducing Renova Style's products, and a new value of being ethical while still stylish spread, especially among the younger generation. In the second year, Renova Style opened a physical store in the Soho district. The store's interior design was also environmentally conscious, using recycled materials and locally sourced wood. Many customers visited from the first day of opening, including some well-known celebrities. Amazing, one of the staff said to Helen. I heard Jennifer Stone shopped here yesterday. She usually shops at Bradley and Company. Helen paused for a moment at those words. Bradley and Company, her family's business. It was a topic she had consciously avoided for a long time. After the failure of Eco Chic, she had kept her relationship with her mother and sister to a minimum. Their rejection had left a deep wound, but it had also become a driving force that strengthened her. I hear Bradley and Company isn't doing well lately, the staff member continued. Rumor has it they can't keep up with the changing times. It was more than just a rumor. As Helen knew, the long-established department store Bradley and Company was struggling to adapt to new consumer trends. Their inability to attract younger customers was becoming a major problem. Meanwhile, Renova Style's success was becoming a topic in the industry, and even traditional luxury brands were beginning to introduce environmentally conscious product lines. In the winter of the third year after Renova Style's success, Helen was looking at the snowy scene from the window of her new office in Manhattan. The company had expanded nationwide, and online sales were strong. Helen was spending busy days as CEO. "Helen, have you seen the news?" Alex entered the office. He handed her a tablet. The screen displayed a headline from an industry magazine, Bradley and Company. Faces bankruptcy crisis, enters acquisition negotiations with Greenfield Group. Helen gasped. The Greenfield Group was known for acquiring traditional companies and restructuring them into more modern business models. "Martha Bradley is likely to lose her position as COO," Alex continued. "The new management team is planning a complete overhaul." "That's..." Helen was at a loss for words. "Your mother, right?" Alex said quietly. "I knew that you're from the founding family of Bradley and Company." Helen turned back to the window. The snow was intensifying. "Don't you think you should contact them?" Alex gently suggested. "They rejected me," Helen's voice was cold. "When I needed help the most, they abandoned me." Alex left the room without saying anything more. Helen remained alone, caught in the complex emotions of past pain intersecting with present success. That night, she was watching the news. There was a feature about the acquisition of Bradley and Company. The camera captured Martha and Laura leaving the headquarters building. Martha looked tired and ignored reporters' questions, while Laura was visibly upset. "The new management has indicated that they will minimize the Bradley family's involvement," the reporter's voice continued. "It appears likely that Martha Bradley and her daughter Laura Bradley will lose their positions in the company." Helen turned off the television. In her heart, satisfaction and sympathy were mingling. A month later, her prediction came true. The Greenfield Group completed the acquisition, and Martha and Laura were fired. Their reputation in the industry plummeted, and offers from other luxury department stores did not come. Martha's old management philosophy and approach to customer service were deemed outdated, and Laura's sense of styling was judged not to resonate with the younger generation. During this time, Renova Style continued to grow. With the company's expansion, Helen was looking for new talent in the human resources and sales departments. One morning, Sarah, the HR manager, came to her office. "Helen, we've had some interesting applications." She held 2 resumes. "These 2 have quite a lot of experience. One in particular seems to have held a high position at Bradley and Company." Helen took the resumes. Seeing the first name, her heart skipped a beat. Martha Bradley. The second resume was Laura's. Her mother and sister had applied to Renova Style without knowing its true identity. While the company name was well known, the fact that Helen Bradley was the CEO was not widely publicized. "What do you think?" Sarah asked. "I can't judge from resumes alone, so I'd like to proceed to interviews." Helen was silent for a long time. In her mind, past pain and her current position were intersecting. She looked out the window. The spring sunshine was brightly illuminating New York City. A new season, a new beginning. "Set up the interviews," Helen said quietly. "Schedule them both for the same time." Sarah looked puzzled but nodded and left the room. Helen sat deep in her chair, imagining what was about to happen. On the day of the interview, Renova Style's office was brightly lit by the spring sunshine. Helen arrived early and prepared the interview room. The windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan's skyline, and the room was decorated in a minimalist design with refined green and white tones. Photos of the company's successful collections adorned the walls, but pictures showing Helen's face had been deliberately avoided. "They have arrived," Sarah informed her through the intercom. "I've shown them to the waiting room." Helen took a deep breath. After 10 minutes, bring them both in together. In the waiting room, Martha and Laura sat side by side on the sofa. Both still seemed surprised to have been called for an interview at Renova Style and were talking to each other in hushed voices. I never expected a mother-daughter interview, Laura said nervously as she adjusted her hair. They probably want to be efficient, Martha was trying to appear calm, but her hands were restless. Renova Style is a rapidly growing company. Naturally, they don't want to waste time. Their clothing still maintained elegance, though it had lost its former splendor. Designer bags and shoes were nowhere to be seen, replaced by modest but tasteful items. Their economic downfall had influenced their style. Mrs. Martha Bradley, Ms. Laura Bradley, Sarah appeared in the waiting room. Please come in together. When they entered the interview room, Helen was standing with her back to them behind a large desk. She seemed to be looking at the Manhattan view through the window. Martha and Laura noticed her figure but didn't think it was Helen. Please, take a seat, Sarah indicated 2 chairs. As Martha and Laura sat down, Helen slowly turned around. A moment of silence dominated the room. Martha gasped, and the color drained from Laura's face. Helen. Martha's voice trembled. You're. Laura was at a loss for words. Helen smiled and walked toward the desk. Mom, Laura, it's been a while, her voice was surprisingly calm. Why are you here? Martha couldn't hide her shock. I'm the CEO of Renova Style, Helen explained as she sat down. I launched it with Alex Green. Didn't you notice from the brand name? Renova, it means renewal. Laura was trying to regain her composure. Meeting like this, what a coincidence. Not a coincidence, Helen placed their resumes on the desk. You applied here. To me. Martha looked up. Her eyes reflected confusion and shame. Helen, we didn't know. Interesting, isn't it? Helen said, scanning through the resumes. That you're now seeking employment in the field where I was told I wasn't suited for business. Laura's face reddened with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Martha remained silent, staring at her daughter's face. 3 years ago, I asked you for help, Helen continued. When my business failed and I lost everything, how did you react? A heavy silence filled the room. Mom sighed and said, business just wasn't for you, Helen recounted matter-of-factly. And Laura said, don't rely on us now. We're busy, you know. Martha closed her eyes. The painful memory came flooding back. Laura lowered her gaze to the floor. That night, as I walked through Manhattan, I thought, Helen continued, looking out the window. I would never again let anyone look down on me. Especially those who don't understand my worth. Helen, we were wrong, Martha admitted in a trembling voice. We couldn't understand your vision. It was due to my ignorance and arrogance. Helen looked at Martha. The once confident woman now sat with a tired expression. Her eyes revealed regret. I vowed to rise again, Helen said quietly. But not for revenge. To prove that my vision was right. And you proved it, Martha nodded slightly. Renova Style is now the talk of the industry. You've become a pioneer in sustainable fashion. Ironically, Helen smiled. Your cold words became my greatest driving force. Laura looked up. Sis. She struggled to find words. I have no intention of dwelling on past events, Helen cut her off. Business is about performance, not emotions. That's what you taught me. Indeed, Martha frankly acknowledged. Let's get to the point, Helen straightened her posture. You applied to Renova Style seeking employment. Looking at your resumes, you certainly have abundant experience. Martha and Laura exchanged surprised looks. They hadn't expected the interview to continue. However, our business model differs greatly from what you're accustomed to, Helen explained. Renova Style isn't just a brand, it's a movement. We merge environmental consciousness and social responsibility with the beauty of fashion. That's a wonderful concept, Martha leaned forward. Helen, I misunderstood your ideas. I understand now. I want to change too. I want you to show me with actions, not words, Helen calmly replied. She thought for a moment, then made her decision. Family is family. But business is business, Helen said slowly. I'm prepared to hire you. But with conditions. Martha and Laura looked at each other in surprise. Martha, I want you to be a mentor to young designers, Helen explained. Your experience is valuable. However, you need to discard old values and learn new ways of thinking. Martha nodded. Thank you for the opportunity, Helen. Laura, you'll need to relearn the basics of sustainable fashion, Helen turned to her sister. You'll start as a sales associate, but your styling sense will surely be useful in the future. Tears welled up in Laura's eyes. Sis, thank you. I truly feel sorry. Helen stood up. We can't change the past. But the future is different. She walked to the window. We're family. That's an unchangeable fact. However, from now on, we need to learn to respect each other as equals. Martha slowly stood up and approached her daughter. Her face showed a humility she hadn't displayed in years. Helen, you've become a remarkable woman, Martha's voice was filled with emotion. Your father would be proud of you. Helen smiled. Can you start next week? Martha and Laura nodded simultaneously. Their eyes reflected a mixture of anxiety and hope. In that moment, a quiet sense of satisfaction spread through Helen's heart. This wasn't revenge, it was the beginning of reconciliation. The Renova Style headquarters lobby, decorated for Christmas, was bathed in warm light. A year had passed, and the company had achieved further growth. It had opened stores in major cities across America and had begun expansion into Europe. Helen Bradley had been elected chairperson of the International Sustainable Fashion Association, and her influence in the industry was growing day by day. Helen was looking up at the large Christmas tree in the lobby. Made of recycled materials, it symbolized Renova Style's philosophy. Before the annual company Christmas party, she was enjoying a quiet moment. Beautiful tree, a voice said. She turned to see Martha standing there. Through a year of mentoring work, she had changed remarkably. Her hairstyle had become more relaxed, and she now preferred clothes made of environmentally friendly materials. But the biggest change was the gentleness in her eyes. Helen, may I talk to you for a moment? Martha gently touched her daughter's arm. The two headed to a small lounge in the corner of the lobby. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall quietly. I've learned so much this past year, Martha said quietly. Working with young designers has given me a new perspective. Their passion, creativity, and above all, their ethics, have taught me my mistakes. Helen listened silently. Please forgive my ignorance in not understanding your vision, Martha's voice conveyed a heartfelt apology. My years of experience at Bradley and Company clouded my judgment. Mom, that's in the past now, Helen smiled. At that moment, Laura approached the two. She had changed as well. The flashiness was gone, replaced by a refined confidence. Her fashion sense remained intact, but now she directed it toward sustainability. The party's ready, Laura said. Everyone's waiting. Laura, you've really thought through the social media strategy this year, Helen complimented her sister. Laura laughed self-consciously. I want to follow your strength and passion, she said honestly. I wanted to change too. The three headed to the large event hall. Employees had gathered there to celebrate the year's success. Alex Green's voice could be heard calling Helen from the stage. This year, We overcame many challenges and achieved great success, Helen began speaking with the microphone in hand. However, Renova Style's true strength lies in the values we share. Our belief in a sustainable future, and a vision where people respect each other. She looked at Martha and Laura. Sometimes, the most difficult trials teach us the most important lessons. The bonds of family, the power of forgiveness, and the courage to embrace change. Warm applause erupted from the audience. After the party, the three walked quietly through the nighttime streets of Manhattan. The snow sparkled beautifully under the streetlights. "It's strange," Martha said. "Fashion industry executives who once looked down on you are now seeking your guidance." Helen smiled. "Life is unpredictable. But with a true vision, you can overcome any adversity." They continued walking through the snowy New York night as a family bound by new ties.